Lake in Michigan. We have October the 27th there, 2025. There's the elevated train there. We'll head into the loop. Eventually, I'm going to head down Michigan Avenue. It's going to be windy here, so I know it's going to be hard to hear me until I get away from these tall buildings, this skyscraper canyon that is Michigan Avenue. So we went by the Nutella and the Nando's there. 12 o'clock on the dot here, noon, Chicago Central Time here. Thanks. Welcome to the Brian Really Chicago live stream and podcast. Eventually, I'll transfer over this morning's live stream to the podcast tab there on the live. Well, there's a live tab on my YouTube page, and then there's a podcast. I've already uploaded, I talked back in July about Millennium history. Of course, you know, I'm all about Millennium history because I never was taught it the right way or understood it growing up. I am Millennium ancestry, and anybody else that you think you have a long lost Cherokee ancestor, please listen to my podcast. Your ancestor might be Millennium, which doesn't mean there isn't a trace of Native American. It's just much more complex and interesting than you possibly can imagine. And of course, please don't file it away in the Tartarian conspiracy theory. It's not that at all. It's real. I talk about real indigenous Native American history and how it intersects with American history. You can check that out on the podcast tab on my YouTube page there, Brian Really Chicago. But if you're just joining here, we're in Chicago. We do this usually at lunchtime. I've been doing this for the last 2 years there. And here, people are taking photos here in the middle of the street here because it's beautiful view to the Nederlander there. They're doing the same thing as me. And that's good here. Oza, how you doing there? Yeah, your show's on. Thanks for tuning in here. Yeah, you're part of this. Oza's part of the lunch bunch there. People are running to get across the street. So I don't even know if it's worth it for me to add the podcast. I think you could simply just watch the live stream and listen with headphones and not, which is essentially what YouTube does with podcasts. Just takes a video and I guess it serves it up there on YouTube Music or podcast or whatever it is. Hey, look at the street wall of Michigan. We got bright, beautiful sunshine. We're above 50 degrees here. We're 54. What I like the most is, and eventually I'll try to see if I can do this. Here comes a squirrel. See if I can do this for all my content. For the shorts, look, Target rats. They're wearing. That's what you see in the alleys there. You'll see this. Kenny from New York City would love this here. See, morning. Target rats.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have a choice.
On my shorts, the short video formats there, like the TikTok or the Reels, you can translate my voice into any dozen of languages, and it really makes it sound like I'm speaking a foreign language. It takes my voice, and since it doesn't have to lip sync with my mouth, because I don't show my mouth most of the time, it works. You can watch Brian Really Chicago in Hindu, Japanese, Chinese, French, Italian. Check it out there. And it's a good option to have. Hopefully we can expand our audience into more international audience here, because there's less trolls outside of America. If there's somebody trolling me, it's an American, and I'm used to that. But here, let's Angie, how you doing there? Chicago Toxic Donut there, Chad. West Green, Cat Bravo, yeah, Renee. Dolores, thanks for tuning in there. Shankar. Yeah, Christy. #1 Big Mac there, yeah. Renee. So hey, we got more content. Thanks everybody watched this morning there. We caught the sunrise there. And we checked out all the latest headlines, and yeah, there's a lot of construction going on here at Millennium Park. I guess they waited until the summer concert series is over. And there's the Pritzker Band Shell. There's the Aon, the Prudential, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Genie Gangs, Wanda Vista here. But hey, here's the Great Bean of Chicago. Yeah, we haven't seen it since Friday. There it is, the Great Bean of Chicago, looking good in the sunshine. I'm not even wearing my winter jacket. I've just got a Derrick Rose windbreaker here. Remember D Rose? Remember D Rose, Derrick Rose? So you got the D Rose right here. Look at that. Bulls are playing. The Chicago Fire lost their playoff game against the Philadelphia Union. That happened yesterday. But they get to play, get another chance there. They got best out of 3, so they got to win 2 more games to stay in the playoffs there. The Bears lost yesterday to the, who did they lose to? I was watching the game. It was so unmemorable, I don't even remember. I know the Bengals lost to the New York Jets, which that was the first game the Jets won. So this is Chicago. If you just joined us, Chicago, there's a pigeon. This is Chicago. This is called The Great Bean of Chicago. The artist is from London. His name's Anish Kapoor. And this is called Cloud Gate. It's this inverted mirror sculpture that people love it because you can see yourself in there. See yourself reflect like an MC Escher there. You can pose and you can walk right up to it. You can flick the bean. You can, there's me. See, there's something to talk to the person inside the bean there. They always say there's a man trapped in the bean there. How do they know it's a man? What if it's a woman? What if it's an alien? Fly the navigator. Yeah, Christy Hosa. Yeah, Derrick Rose, that's good. Yeah, Justin Fields there. Bears quarterback there. So they're taking down, changing the season. They're going to taking down the bar here. They're going to convert this to an ice skating rink. So a month from now, we'll see people ice skating here. They'll be setting up the Christmas tree, but for now, we're still we're before Halloween. So let's head around here, and we'll cross the street and we'll head into the Loop of Chicago. Yeah, Krista. Surveillance Center. Yeah, that's what it is. The surveillance state. Yeah, Michael Jordan, the house that Michael Jordan built, that's the United Center, the second one. Still the largest seating capacity NBA hockey stadium in the United States. Canada has a larger one. Canada has, I think Toronto or Montreal has a hockey stadium that's indoor larger than the United Center. But the United States, and that was built in 1995. Can you believe that? It's lasted this long. It's the largest indoor stadium there, United Center, the house that Michael Jordan built. Hey, yes, we're in Chicago. Where's the Aon Prudential? There's a great bean there. Look at them. That's the Montgomery Wards there. The Willoughby Tower. So hey, let's head through the Loop. Let's see what's shaking here. Touchdown quarterback. You got it. Yeah, see, Jim? Everybody wants to see what the mystery is here. I got my face. If you watch my content, you'll see my face all the time. It's always funny when people are like, why don't you ever show your face? I say, well, you don't watch my content. Usually, now I'm probably showing my face several times a day, just like that. People know I'm not ice. Here's the green line. Look at the green line heading through Loop of Chicago. We're going to head right that way. We'll go over to Wabash. We'll see if they're still working on State Street, and we'll get over towards LaSalle. We'll get over towards the Chicago River. Maybe tomorrow, if the sun's shining, we might go to Navy Pier, and then they're going to do probably another bridge lift on Wednesday. I know we already saw it on last week, but you know me, just like Chris Gustafson got the view of the train there in the Chicago Forest Preserve. A big freight train was going through the tracks there. That was a nice find there. You like planes, trains, and automobiles, and sailboats, and bridges, anchor chains, train whistles. Yeah, Justin Jones, I think tourism's way down in America, and it's not just people from Mexico. The tourism in San Antonio's down. The tourism in Las Vegas is down. We're losing a lot of international travel. They sung the national anthem in Australia. The people in Australia booed the American national anthem. These are our closest allies. Our president is doing its best to piss off Canada and our friends and allies. Now, you might be happy with that. You might be happy, but I'm really worried. I'm worried that we're losing standing in the world. Maybe Trump is gaining standing, but us as Americans will pay the price, because as you travel abroad, as the United States U.S. citizen woman who traveled to Mexico proudly wearing her Make America Great Again hat, when she got off the plane in Mexico, she seemed shocked that she was being heckled by Americans in Mexico for wearing a hat, and Mexicans for wearing that hat in Mexico. So you can take your American, and she was part Mexican. She said, I'm part Mexican. So you can take your American privilege and take it to other countries, and people can still resent you for it. And you might say to hell with the rest of the world, but we're going to need the rest of the world, because the rest of the world buys our products and buys our soybeans. And if they stop doing it, the rest of the world gets so angry, the United States stops buying our debt, our U.S. Treasury bonds, we won't be able to build that precious ballroom, even though it's being funded by private donors, which to me sounds pretty shady. If the mayor of Chicago would build a ballroom with private donors, I don't think you would like it. Why do you like it if the current shady Vance administration here, two wrongs don't make a right. If it's wrong if one party does it, it should be wrong if either party does it. And the hypocrisy on the left is rampant. The hypocrisy on the right is rampant. The government is shut down. The stock market is going to hit the all-time highs today. So what's the point? We got American workers for the government laid off, not getting their paycheck. And the president's not even in the country. That's not a criticism. I'm just saying what's happening in the news today. Here, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Chicago. Here's the pigeons. Here's the look at that beautiful building there. That's part of Marshall Fields there. See, that's the, see how it's a grouping of several buildings. The whole block, Marshall Field, takes up a whole square block of the loop of Chicago. It actually goes over the alley. This is Wabash here. So we'll cross the street here. We'll head up. Here's underneath Wabash. That's underneath the Washington and Wabash stop here on the loop of Chicago here. Yeah, Sky Jumper. So if the stock market crashes, I don't want you to sell your stock. I want you to ride it all the way down, because we might be in 1999. So I want you to hold it until it goes down to like 2003, and I want us to revisit it. So Sky Jumper, we'll revisit the stock market further into the Trump administration and see if it's higher or lower. And if it's higher, I'll eat my hat and eat my words, and you can laugh at me. But if it's lower, I want to make sure you don't sell your stock and you take the loss as you double down on your politician, which is this guy. So hey, you could stay in the Trump Tower, make him richer. You can donate to the ballroom if you like him so much, and I'm sure you won't, however much you have is not going to be enough to get you in that ballroom, unless you have a membership in Mar-a-Lago there. Maybe you do. Who's the jump now? Here, Macy's. Hey, we went through there. Yeah, let's go through Macy's, and we'll pop out here. Well, let's see if I want to get the train here. I want to get the train coming around. So maybe we'll stay outside. It's such a beautiful day. Hey, welcome to Wabash Street. Here, Jewelers Row. Look at these. See these buildings? They saved the facade. They built this called the Heritage, which is a condo building. The mayor of Chicago, Daley II, famously lived there. I don't know if he still does. But yeah, here comes the Orange Line. We'll get the Orange Line coming by here. Wabash, Chicago, Illinois. Thanks for tuning in there. Hey, the Orange Line there. There you go. Hey, here's the conductor. So hey, we'll cross Randolph Street. This is Randolph Street, Loop of Chicago. There's the Trump Tower. We'll head over towards the Nederlander Theater. We'll go by the Ross here, Loop of Chicago. We got 12:13 p.m. We're going 54 degrees Fahrenheit. What is that? 10, 12, some degrees centigrade. I'm not for sure. And we'll head right there. Hey, they got the parking concrete things there. Hey, well, I'm glad you survived there, Sky Jumper. There, you're pretty resilient there. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger there. You got the experience to tell about it. Thanks for tuning in here. Fernando, yeah. It's almost 60, it feels good. Yeah, Merc, I hear you, Merc. Hey, there's the train, there's the brown line. There's the brown line heading north here. Detective John Kimball. Yeah, the brown lines are longer. There you go. So here, let's head over towards State Street. See the clock there? This is Marshall Field. Now it's Macy's. It was Marshall Fields. We've gone inside there. We'll go inside there once. They're already setting there. They're setting up the holiday displays there. We'll head there later in the week, I'm sure. So there, we'll head. We'll cross State Street. Oh, actually, I want to see yeah, we'll go to the other side. I want to see what's on the marquee for the Chicago Theater. There it is. We'll head right over there to the Chicago Theater. We just got the light here. They've been working on State Street this whole week, or last week too. They got State Street tore up here on the Chicago Theater. So even down this way, they got some arrows and cones and barricades. Yeah, they're digging up the trenches in the street here. So here, let's check out the Chicago Theater really quickly, and then we'll head over towards Daily Plaza, see if they're setting up for the Kris Kringle Market here. Yeah, Merc, Tracy. Yeah, look at that. So there's the Chicago Theater. Killers Have Killed Tony, November the 6th. Here, we'll head around here. Here's where the Jenny Siskel Film Center is here, 164. Ralph Barboza, November the 7th. Here's the Chicago Theater here. See, it's nice when they're working on this. We can just walk right across the middle of the street here. And they got a active construction site. I don't think they really want us walking here, but look at that. Nice view. You get to the Chicago Theater. And yeah, let's head through the plug walk here. We'll head right through this alley, and then we'll pop out by the Goodman Theater. So they call this Couch Place, James M. Nederlander Way. There's the Jane Siskel Film Center, Joffrey Ballet. Here they call this the plug walk. I don't know why, but I like these. For your community, for the next generation. We got the square and the rectangle hanging out with the circle, the triangle, the cube, the sphere. Make it good for the planet, for the next generation there. And then they got, so yeah, historically this is the back of the Nederlander Theater, which used to be the Oriental Theater. Before that it was called the Iroquois Theater. There were problems with both of those names, but tragically in around just after the turn of the 20th century, the 1900-something, there was a horrible fire. You can research it there. The asbestos drapes caught on fire, and a few hundred people, mainly women, because it was a matinee. It was during the day. They died. The exit doors weren't. Some of them were locked. People became trapped in the fire, and that was when it was the Iroquois Theater, and a lot of the bodies were stacked up back in this alley. So I'm sure there's some paranormal activity. People, especially Halloween time, people want to know what places are haunted. This alley, just like the alley behind the courthouse there in River North, where they hung the Haymarket individuals there. There, Harry Potter here. I don't know if that's at the Goodman Theater. Here's the Goodman Theater here in Chicago. And look, they got this facade here. Let's head down, see if they're setting up for the Kris Kringle. Here's some of the, look at that. The Oliver Typewriter Company. The Oliver Typewriter Company. The historical names of the companies that built these buildings are in the building. The Oliver Typewriter Company here. And let's see if we can find a plaque. And look at that. So buildings like this in the Loop would produce sellable goods like hats. There was haberdashery stores in the Loop, typewriter stores, all kinds of manufacturing would happen right in the loop. And it wasn't just all offices. So imagine just like the Triangle company there in New York, that caught as horrible fire. Here it is, Chicago landmark, the Oliver and Roche, 1907. Constructed as a headquarters for the Oliver Typewriter Company, this Chicago school-style building clearly expresses its interior steel frame through its grid-like exterior, classical cast iron ornamentation, subtly advertises the company name and product, the Oliver Typewriter Company. So there it is. 159 North Dearborn Street, right across from the Goodman Theater. And there we go, Oliver and Roche. What an amazing historical. And that's what makes my job easy. There's so much great architecture and historical content here just to cover just in this city, in this region here. So here we'll wait to cross the street here. We got Dearborn, and let's get this car here. Yeah, we'll head across here. There's bikes are coming good. Let's go. So here we'll head over to Daily Plaza here, loop of Chicago. We got 12:19 in the PM. There's a little wind. It was really windy along the lake this morning. We saw some nice waves there. We saw the sunrise. So I probably won't spend, I'm just taking a peek. It doesn't look like they're setting up. They're just prepping the site. So I don't think there's anything going on. We'll head straight over towards the, yeah, I don't see anything happening for the Kris Kringle, so we'll skip that. Check out the high rises here, but yeah, American Nouveau. It's like Art Nouveau. Yeah, it's like Art Nouveau in Paris. I'm glad they didn't take it off you. I'm glad you saw that, Margie. Iroquois Theater, 1903. Yeah, thanks, Merck. Thanks for looking up the date there. So 1903 was when the Iroquois fire happened there. It's where the Nederlander Theater is. It used to be the Oriental Theater, and then it was the Iroquois Theater. And there used to be a theater over in this area called the Garrick Theater. That's where we get the heads on the Second City there. That was Louis Sullivan and his partner, Donkmar Adler. This is the State of Illinois building. If you watch the old Blues Brothers movie, when they go down this area was completely different at that time. There was like a Greyhound bus station, and this area was like the old theater district of Times Square. It was a bunch of like old theaters with the marquees and stuff, and they took all that down when they built this. But there's a rat, so we'll check out the rat here. This is the this used to be the State of Illinois building, the Thompson Center, designed by Helman Jan. Google is renovating it. You see how they redid the curtain wall. It's got the giant atrium, and you can get to the train lines there. And eventually this is going to be the Google Alphabet downtown loop headquarters for, they already have a Google Alphabet office space in the West Loop. This will complement that, and we're happy that Apple and Google is renovating this. Thanks for investing in real infrastructure instead of buying back your stock, which they're doing anyway. But here's the rat. So anytime you see this rat, Chicago still is a big union town. I know people make fun of us that, but if you like an 8-hour workday or all these benefits that you, time and a half, you have the Chicago labor movement to thank for it. And here's the Google's developer, Phoenix Investors, and general contractor Phoenix Construction undermine local workers because they're using non-union labor here for probably one of their subcontracts. And so anytime the unions let people know, and you might be anti-union, I understand that, but I'm just showing the world as it is, not as we want it to be. And if you might be in Chicago someday and encounter that inflatable rat, that's why it's there. The unions, when they want to show people crossing the picket line there. Yeah, it's a big rat. Kenny would like it. Kenny. But here, here's LaSalle Street. We'll show you LaSalle Street here, and we'll head over to the Chicago River here. So here's LaSalle Street. Look how nice it looks here. There's Blagojevich. Hey, we got the light here, so we'll cross LaSalle Street at Randolph Palace Theater. Look at this amazing view. You get to the Chicago Board of Trade there, LaSalle Street. Last week we went down there. We went inside the Wintrust Bank building. I got a short on that. If you check out my shorts, you can change the language there. We were talking about that earlier. Eat my shorts. Here's learn to spot illegal taxis. Yeah, good luck with that. Here's Chris Fleming, live. Chris Fleming here. Twilight. They're gonna have Twilight here. Magical Cirque du Soleil Christmas is gonna be here. That should be interesting. Broadway, Chicago here. Family Opera, December 11th through February 1st here. See Family Opera here. We're gonna revive it. Hey, there's the Brown Line heading south here on Wells Street, Hooper, Chicago. We got 1224, 54 degrees. Not too bad. Here's the Allegro Hotel. Yeah, D. Michael, Tracy, Say, CE, Misty, Randy, what are you doing there? Yeah, I get you, Randy. Thanks for your comment. No big deal. I'm positive, negatives, everything. There's positive unions. There's negative unions. Unions do drive up the cost of labor, which drives up the cost of construction. So, yeah, we know. Thanks for pointing that out here. So here's underneath Wells Street. But you have to acknowledge many of the things we take for granted. People 100 years ago and 150 years ago fought and marched, and because working conditions used to be really bad, and they're a lot better now because of unions. But then the unions got fat and bloated, and it becomes a special interest group, just like the special interest groups that are donating money for Trump's ballroom. That's special interest too. There's special interest on the right, there's special interest on the left. Too much money in politics ruins the whole thing for the rest of us. I agree. I talk about this ad nauseum. Citizens United, Supreme Court. Hey, we're going to enjoy the day. We're going to enjoy the sunshine here. Elf the musical, the Auditorium Theater. That's where December 2nd to 14th, they're going to have Elf the musical at the Auditorium Theater. That's the one down there by Roosevelt University that Louis Sullivan designed. We might head down there later in the week. But here we're over 225 West Randolph. There'll be a really nice view to the Sears Tower. Here's the CNA building. It used to be over on Michigan. Now it's over here. Doesn't have a column on the corner. Same as this one. The Riverside, one of the Riverside. Well, no, they call this Randolph and Franklin, whatever that building that is. But hey, there it is. There's the Sears Tower. There's this great view. You get to the Sears Tower, the Willis Tower. I call it the Sears Tower, as most Chicagoans do. And they're 1,400 feet tall, over 1,400 feet tall, over 400 meters tall. Sears Tower here in Chicago, the tallest building for the last 50 years. And there hasn't been a taller one built since, except in New York City, which came after 9/11. Yeah, keep your eyes on the road. Keep your eyes on the road and your hands upon the wheel. We'll sing the old Jim Morrison Doors song there. Jim Morrison ate more chicken than any man you ever seen there. He said it in the song. You get his mojo rising. He stole that from Muddy Waters. Muddy Waters' mojo was rising long before. I got my mojo rising. Yeah. I'm the Lizard King. I can do anything except for knock my monkey off my back there. Here's Randolph and Wacker. Sterling Bay, the developer Sterling Bay. There you go. So here we'll head over to River. We'll go up this way. So normally I would cross the Lake Street Bridge and head over to the confluence, but they're working on the Lake Street Bridge. So we'll skip it for now. We'll head straight up to the Riverwalk, and we'll walk all the way back. And Wacker Drive, Randolph here. We might go past Michigan if we have time. See, they got this nice plaza here. We go off to there sometimes. Yeah, I'm still going back to work here. I'm on my lunch break, so thanks, Dave, for asking about work there. Work wasn't bad. There's a few people in the office. Hardly anybody's in the office. Most people are sleeping in, working from home. I had a few phone calls, met with a few people. And yeah, pretty empty in the office today. There's usually more people Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. There's the Beatrix. We're on Wacker Drive. There's the Beatnik Kitchen over there. Here, I'll show you this plaque. Darren Monroe pointed this out to me literally 2 years ago, or over 2 years ago. There's a plaque to the wigwam. The Abraham Lincoln in 1860 was nominated for the Republican ticket there in the 1860 election that got him elected to the presidency, and he wasn't even on the ballot in like most of the states that eventually left for the Confederacy. He wasn't even on the ballot in like half the states. And here, let's cross the street here. We'll show it here. Here comes the elevated trains here. Here, let's get the train going by here. There's the green line. There's the green line. Chicago. There it is. Abraham Lincoln, the site of the wigwam in which Abraham Lincoln was nominated for president in 1860. Presented by the Chicago chapter. Daughters of the American Revolution there. 1909 this has been here. This plaque has been here since 1909. So the Saguenay Hotel. Remember how I talk about Bobine? There's Bobine Court. He was like Jean-Baptiste Point-du-Sable. He came with the French culture, but he stayed. He ran the Saguenay Hotel. There, right here by the river, there was this hotel called the Saguenay Hotel. It was built in 1831, which is now the southeast corner of Lake and Wacker. That's where we're at here. It was Chicago's first hotel and soon became a social center town. In 1833, prominent local citizens met at the Saguenay Hotel to incorporate the town of Chicago. The first election and first meeting of the town trustees were also held here. The hotel was destroyed by fire in 1851. So the Saguenay Hotel was destroyed by fire even before the wigwam or the Great Chicago Fire. Isn't that amazing? And I showed you there was always fires. And here we'll head across. See how they're working on the Lake Street Bridge here. They got to close the pedestrian and vehicular traffic. Here we'll get the train heading across here. There's the green line heading across the South Branch Chicago River. We can't even head down to the Riverwalk. They got the Riverwalk blocked off down below us here. There's the green line heading across. And look, they built some. Yeah, see, they even have this blocked off down here. So we'll head towards the Merchandise Mart. Yeah, we need a John Brown Memorial. Now, John Brown was in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, which was part of Virginia at the time. Remember, West Virginia broke off from Virginia because of the Civil War. And John Brown, the meteor, before the Civil War started, he was a abolitionist and a very enthusiastic one. He started the war on his own and was captured, hanged. John Brown, back. Nowadays, we would have called him a bleeding heart liberal because he was a white guy that fought for abolition, which kudos to him, John Brown. And, yeah, Manhattan. Fred Hampton. Yeah, Fred Hampton, there you go. Yeah, I agree. I filmed Fred Hampton's house. Fred Hampton's house is on the western edge of the West Loop going towards East Garfield Park. I think at least twice I've gone by the Fred Hampton house. Fred Hampton was the Illinois chapter head of the Black Panther Party in 1969. He was murdered by Chicago police officers, and the FBI and the CIA were involved with it. You can watch Judas and the Black Messiah. There's a wonderful movie that came out just a few years ago called Judas and the Black Messiah, where they talk about Fred Hampton. And I agree, there's not a plaque. the original house where he was murdered, they tore it down. There's a new house there on the plot. Somebody lives there. And we filmed it just for, like, I think it's important to history too, you know, and it relates to Abraham Lincoln and, you know, John Brown in an interesting way, civil rights struggle that continued 100 years after the Civil War. And the work is never finished, you know. And so here's Franklin Street. I don't normally walk down this ramp. This is the ADA accessible ramp here. How you doing? To get down to the, hey, look at that barge. That's a giant barge going up the North Branch Chicago River. That's not a firework barge. They actually have some aggregate on there. It's probably for the construction site. It's probably going to the casino site. Maybe that barge is hauling debris from the North Branch Chicago River where they're working on the Chicago permanent location for the Bally's Casino. There's the pink line heading across Lake Street. Here comes the yellow water taxi. So that shows you where they got the Riverwalk. It ends there anyway. You just can't connect to Lake Street. But here, look at that large barge and look at the yellow Windella water taxi heading over towards Wrigley Building. There's the, we were there on Friday. We walked around Wolf Point. We went up to Wacker Park. Thanks to those that joined. You can watch that rerun there. But hey, here's the Brian Really Chicago live stream and podcast here. I'm going to start adding this stuff to the podcast there once it posts there. So Bad Wolf, I'm against ICE. You could be for ICE. It's also our American constitutional rights to be against ICE. So I respect your First Amendment right. You know, you like, are you afraid that they'll be used as a domestic police organization for one party over the other? You know, are we vetting these people? Are members of January 6th being hired to work for ICE? You might like that. You might be part of that. You might get it. You might have a job. But I'm sure that you wouldn't like people without a state license plates, even if they are doing the legal thing and rounding up people that broke the law. You know, there's other people that break the law all the time that they don't spend this much money and effort going after. It seems kind of obvious what's going on here. So America has gone through jingoism and has always had a bias against people south of the border. I often argue, laughingly, I don't mean this flippantly or disrespectful in any way, that America has consistently treated Mexico as a Native American reservation for centuries. We won the Mexican-American War. We could have took over Mexico, but we chose not to because they were worried about absorbing a Catholic mestizo population into our culture, and when we were still a slave country, at least the southern states. That was 1848 when we won the Mexican-American War. So we just took the western California, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Nevada, parts of Texas. Texas was begging the United States to annex it. Remember, Texas did it on their own. They won their independence from Mexico before the Mexican-American War in 1836 or around there. And then they begged, immediately Sam Houston begged the United States to annex them. The United States says, no, we're not ready for you. It'll mess up the balance of slave and free states. And it wasn't until California, well, the land territory gained by the Mexican-American War helped because California became a free state, and then Texas could be admitted as a slave state, which was the way it was done back then. The Missouri Compromise, or what do they call that? Yeah, Chicago's looking beautiful. How you doing there? Mary Trees, thanks for tuning in. Anita, thanks for tuning in. London's too, is that, or you're asking if it's London? Okay, no, this is Chicago. See, it says the Chicago School. You see there? It says the Chicago School. We'll see the elevated trains here. This is the Chicago River. This is not the Thames. This is the Chicago River. This is the Merchandise Mart. And if you're just tuning in here, we're in Chicago. There's Salesforce Tower, Wolf Point. We're doing our lunch walk here. We got 12:37. Checking out the Chicago Riverwalk on a Monday here. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, Chicago loves you there. BMR1. Yeah, isn't it interesting? I posted my podcast about Melungeon history, and it's funny that Melungeons were miners in the Appalachians, and eventually they found gold because the Native Americans mined mica and other things, and the Melungeons mined silver and gold because they came from the Spanish culture, even though they might have been enslaved at one time. And then the back in the 1500s. And that's how they got there. They were marooned in America. The Spanish just left them. And they didn't want to go back. They ran off and lived with the indigenous people. But yeah, isn't it interesting that almost every gold rush in America either precedes or would immediately follow a land grab by the American culture to seize indigenous land, where usually the gold was. It wasn't just. I'm sure you've seen the HBO series Deadwood. It's about Deadwood in the Black Hills of South Dakota. That was about the gold rush in the Black Hills. That immediately preceded it was coincides with Custer's last stand and the taking of the Black Hills from the Lakota Sioux. Now, the America, when they forced the Lakota Sioux, eventually Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, to sign the treaties and surrender because it was a war of conquest, they reminded the Lakota that they originally started in Minnesota, and they were pushed further west by the Chippewa, which are the Ojibwe, and the Americans in Minnesota, which is around the World War II. And then by 1870s, they were in the Black Hills, which they pushed out the Cheyenne and the Arapaho and other indigenous tribes, the Shoshone, that lived around there, and they pushed them further west. But there was a gold rush in Georgia that preceded the Trail of Tears. Is it a coincidence that in the 1820s, in the early 1830s, that gold was discovered in the Georgia Appalachian Mountains near Helen and Dongahela, whatever that other name of that town, I never can pronounce it right, Dongahela, whatever it's called. There was a gold rush in northern Georgia and Tennessee and North Carolina where they all converged, and that was where the Cherokees traditionally had their homeland, at least when the colonial powers discovered them, which was not until the 1730s. Well, they knew they were there in the 1680s. There were the lower Cherokee, which might have been, it's a long story about the Cherokee. We'll get into that some other time. But there was a gold rush, and they used it as an excuse to do the Trail of Tears, to push the Indian Removal Act and clear out the Native Americans because there was gold, and that was motivation for settlement. They wanted the land. Georgia wanted them out. Georgia always wanted the Native Americans out so they could make it a slave state and grow cotton where the Cherokees lived. Some of the mixed blood Cherokee owned slaves and were growing cotton at the time of the Trail of Tears, and they brought their slaves with them to Oklahoma. This is well documented because the mixed bloods were highly assimilated, and many of them were slave owners as well, and many of them were Melungeons. They were Melungeons mixed with indigenous people, Cherokee from the old Cherokee Nation, and I talk about that on my first posted podcast about the Melungeons. We're going to start adding podcasts to the podcast, and maybe like one or two people will watch it. I don't think podcasts are as important now as they used to be, but I guess it works if people are driving or want to work with their headphones or something. I'll give you something to listen to. But hey, welcome to Chicago. Here, the Riverwalk. Here, we're across from the Britannica. This is where the Eastland disaster happened. We talked about it last week. But hey, we got 1241. We got about 54 degrees here on the Chicago Riverwalk. They're going to do a bridge lift probably again on Wednesday. So no guarantee. We'll see if we got time to cover that. But you can also watch it from last Wednesday. Yeah, Wichita. How you doing there, Dave Massey? Love the Wichita, Kansas. Yeah, MK11 there. Learn something new every day. Thanks, Margie. Thanks. We learn from each other. That's the way it is. I did with YouTube. There's part where supposedly they can use my content for education. Supposedly, if people with keywords, if they search for Chicago history or Chicago architecture, students from college age all the way down could use my content, as we're trying to fight the vast wasteland of the internet where it's just used to sell people stuff. You know, internet was supposed to have people learn stuff, and now that Wikipedia has been thoroughly scraped, and Wikipedia will probably go away because of ChatGPT and AI, because anything you can find on Wikipedia you can find on ChatGPT AI now. And we'll fill in the void here. But here's the skeleton here. Here's the tiny tab. He's drinking the coffee there. I like the eyes. Yeah. So hey, we found some really good Halloween decorations. If you go to my video there, 3 down, Wacker Park there on Hoyne and Pierce, we found some Halloween decorations on Friday night. It was pretty good. If you missed it and you want to see some Halloween decorations, you can just watch the 40-minute video there. I just cut out the Halloween decoration. You go to the video, you don't have to search for it in the live rerun and fast forward like a TiVo. But like this, if you missed the bean, you want to see the bean, you could rewind. At the beginning of this video, we went by the bean. Now we're by the Chicago River, this tiny tap here. It's looking west. Go ahead around here. But hey, let's do a quick check of the news here. I want to add this where I actually do a news update. We talked about sports this morning. So here, we'll go to the New York Times and then we'll go to the Chicago Tribune. So President Trump is meeting with the Japanese emperor there. I don't think there's many new news here. So let's go to the Chicago Tribune here. Let's go to the Chicago Tribune, see what's shaking here. We got about 54 degrees. It's supposed to be in the 50s all week. Pretty sunny most of the way. So here, top headlines from the Chicago Tribune for October the 27th here, 2025. Gig workers and street vendors and day laborers hit by feds. Chicago immigration crackdown. Aldermen to lobby lawmakers on behalf of Mayor Brandon Johnson for progressive revenue. Yeah, that's the Chicago has major problems with the budget, I know, and the mayor's desperately trying to find new revenue streams, which just means more taxes. They're either going to do a head tax on the big giant corporate companies, which just will cause them to leave Chicago, like any ones that are left. People always make fun of North Shore, wealthy elite liberals, white liberals that live on the North Shore, but they were out in mass blowing whistles and getting thrown to the ground by ICE, so you can laugh at the wealthy millionaire soccer moms being thrown to the pavement, blowing their whistles. I don't think it's funny. I think it's a bad day for America. It's a very bad image. How can we say America's great when we got the image of Americans fighting with other Americans in the streets of Chicago? And this is the image I fear the administration wants. They want to show Americans being punished. It's like a strange porn. It's like a strange pornography that's pervading social media that I'm sure there's Americans that cheer ICE harassing communities that they dislike and don't want in America anyway, even if they're legal. And don't tell me this is not going on. I'm sure people are cheering this because they're like, it's payback. And I wish the governor of Texas would bear some responsibility for setting this up. They went right into plan where they bust all the migrants up to Chicago so they could punish the big sanctuary cities if Trump became president. And that's exactly what happened. It worked. And we're all in shock. Here's the large barge here, the shoreline sightseeing heading underneath the State Street Bridge. See how it's under construction there? We just passed the Marina Towers. And this goes on all the time. Oops. Here's So, milk seed. Communists are Americans too. Americans have the right to be socialists. Americans have the right to fight capitalism. You might not like it. It's our First Amendment free speech rights. You might want to rant. See, that's what we fear. And we fear people like you because we know easily these masked Americans can be used up to round up other American citizens if American citizens don't exercise their Fourth and First Amendment rights against unlawful search and seizures against American citizens. I'm not talking about the undocumented migrants or the illegal aliens, however you want to phrase it. I'm talking about this is Americans fighting Americans. And this is what you want, and you seem to be celebrating. I think this does not make America great. It might help your stock market. But just because the stock market's up doesn't mean the economy's good. It just means the billionaires are fleecing the rest of us. And it's going to come back to haunt them when the next time the market tanks, they're going to want to be bailed out. And they're going to ask you, MAGA, to chip in to bail out the billionaires. Are you going to do it, MAGA? Are you going to support the billionaires when you're waiting in a bread line? And don't think that won't happen, because this could backfire. And we're going to remember and write your name down and say, hey, what do you think about it now, 3 years later? Because we don't know how this is going to play out. So I think it's just extreme greed, and we need to demand more of corporate America. I want to create a vast surge of activity in the vast center. I think most Americans are in the center. Most Americans are not at the extreme left and extreme right. We get people in the comments on the extreme left and extreme right all the time. People want to pigeonhole me as extreme left. I'm more pragmatic. I realize there's a lot more of us in the center than on the fringe of the left and right. And this is not a normal administration that we're going through. It's very, normal administrations just don't tear down the east wing of the White House and accept private donors to grease the palms of the graft and the corruption of Washington, D.C. And we know corruption in Chicago because we have it at the city. So we see stuff like this happen in Chicago all the time. When it happens at national level, why are you not angry? Why are you're okay with billionaires merging with government and just buying off our government? It's not a government of the people, by the people, for the people. It's a government of the corporations, by the corporations, and for the corporations. And you think I'm lying? Ask Elon Musk. He goes right to the seat of the table there because he's got the money to do it. And we cut off USA and we gave a bunch of money to Argentina. They're picking winners and losers, and it's all according to the personal relationship of one man. And you wonder why we say no kings. We need to check the power of the executive branch. And if you're not for that, I'm against you because it's in the Constitution. Our founding fathers didn't want the executive branch to be this powerful, especially with somebody that's a narcissist and has problems with aggrandizement and self-dealing. And that's your guy. That's the guy you're proud of. I'm not proud of it. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of what we're going through in this country. I'm ashamed that good people like you, because I'm sure you're a good person, you tolerate, because we tolerate the corruption of this city. I can understand it. There is corruption in Chicago. Blagojevich should not have been pardoned by Trump. Why did he pardon him? George Santos should not have been pardoned by Trump. Why is he hanging out with these people? He would pardon Ghislaine Maxwell in a second if the whole Epstein thing would go away. And people on the right want the Epstein files released as well. It's a strange bipartisan issue. Here, look at the beautiful view. We got the Wrigley Building. We got the Intercontinental Hotel, which used to be the Medina Athletic Association, built by the Shriners. And there's the Tribune Tower, built by the Chicago Tribune. They had a contest in 1925. They picked that Gothic revival style. That's Spanish revival, the Wrigley Building. And here's the McCormick Bridge House. You can tour that. Go up in these bridge houses. We went up there one time and saw a bridge lift. It was great. Yeah, so you're gonna fly to Argentina and go support the Argentinian economy and not go to Las Vegas and not support Chicago. You'd rather support Argentina than Chicago. That's how most Americans feel right now. And we notice in Chicago, we feel slighted. You'd rather give money to Argentina than Chicago president. How is that making America great? It's just because Scott Bessent has investments in Argentina that they want to bail out. Look into that. Look into J.D. Vance and Scott Bessent having major stock holdings in a company called Acre Trader. What does Acre Trader do? It buys distressed farms. There's going to be a lot of distressed farms as a result of Trump's tariff policies, and they're going to buy up the land, and that's why Scott Bessent says he's a soybean farmer. He's not a soybean farmer. He buys soybean farms from real farmers and makes them into corporate farms, agribusinesses. So if you like that, go ahead. These are your people. And that's your right. Here's the Wrigley Building. There's the Tribune Tower. It used to be called the Equitable Building. There's the NBC Tower, the Gleacher Center for University of Chicago. Here, let's head around here. So here's where they got all the architectural tour boats here. Yeah, we're all being manipulated and gaslighted. I agree with your statement there, Design Traveler. Smart statement there. It's the manipulation. Get people to vote against their interests because you give them things that are free, like white privilege doesn't cost them money, but it's something that they could easily do with their cultural stuff. You know, repressing culture. You know, repressing the Mexican American culture and the speaking of Spanish by having intimidation of masked men and women without state licenses. Did you see they found a black pickup truck that ICE was driving that had no license plates on the front and back? The Chicago police officers could arrest that because they're driving around. Even police officers have to have a license plate. You're not allowed, even if you work for ICE, to drive a vehicle without license plate. And we noted it. We noted the person. We're going to find this person that's driving around, because we don't even know if they're really ICE. They could be impersonating ICE. They're driving around a big giant Texas-looking black S250 truck, and it has no license plate on the front and the back, and they're kidnapping people, and they won't identify themselves. We don't know if they're with ICE or just some anarchist that's taken out. You know, here's your chance. I'm not condoning it. If you want to impersonate ICE, no one's going to stop you. And you can cause a lot of havoc. So here we're by the Northmen. We're getting a call here. So we'll just ignore it and we'll keep going here. So they got restrooms, they got public restrooms here. If you just join, we're on the Chicago Riverwalk and we're by the Northmen here. We'll head up the stairs to go to the Columbus Bridge there. I think the Centennial Fountain's turned off, but it still might be running. I know Ernie streamed the Buckingham Fountain earlier this week. I think it was still on last week. They're probably going to turn it off this week. He got the light show. Hopefully Ernie, I think Ernie was streaming in Pilsen on Saturday night. And I think he got some Dia de los Muertos content. And he might have found that house with all the Dia de los Muertos stuff there. Thanks for being on, Anita. I really appreciate it. Joe King. Yeah, derangement. He's deranged. I'm deranged. He's deranged. I might have Trump derangement syndrome, but I think Trump has something even worse. That's just my opinion. Ukraine's tuning in. Julia, thanks for tuning in from the Ukraine there. Yeah, we all want an end to that war. And it just keeps going on and on and on. Isn't it so interesting that Zelensky asked President Trump for Tomahawk missiles, and then he calls Putin and he goes, Putin, do you want us to give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles? Who does that? Who does that? You know, it seems like he wanted to he wanted to impress Putin. Would Ronald Reagan want to impress Putin? Ronald Reagan didn't want to impress Gorbachev. He wanted to do a deal with him. Isn't it amazing that the current president is haunted by Ronald Reagan's own words to the point where he can't stand the commercial, and it's Ronald Reagan's own words. And you can say, yeah, it was edited, but it's his own words. And so what? Donald Trump doesn't like Ronald Reagan now? I know he doesn't like the Bushes. You know, these are real conservatives that he doesn't like. He doesn't like John Bolton. John Bolton's not part of Antifa. See, they got some Fall Fest there. Here's the island party. Yeah, we'll head up the stairs here. Here, we'll head through here, Chicago Riverwalk. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking out our little lunchtime walk. We'll be on after 5 tonight. I'm going to head up these stairs, and I'll try to get you a view of the skyline as we head back to the office here. Here's Lower Wacker. This is the lowest level of Wacker Drive, and that's where they tow your car. They Lower Wacker. See, there's the middle level of Wacker Drive. That's what we usually drive on, get through the loop and down to the Eisenhower Expressway. And here we're heading up to Columbus Drive here at Streeterville. And we'll get it to end our live stream. We'll get a spectacular view of the Wrigley Building with the Trump Tower in the background. So all you Trump fans can eat your heart out there and sing God Bless America and drink a beer. It'd be great. There, yeah, we're gonna head that way. So yeah, this is Lower Wacker. You see, we're gonna head to the lower Wacker, middle part of Wacker, and the upper Wacker here. So 3 levels of Wacker Drive can clearly be seen here at 12. So it looks like the Centennial Fountain is turned off, so we won't stick around for that. Usually it does that water jet on the hour there, but we posted the rerun to both YouTube and TikTok. I'm not posting any more content to TikTok. Screw TikTok, they're dead to me. I really appreciate everybody's support. We had fun times there on TikTok. I never thought I'd leave the platform, but they literally chased me away from it, so I won't forget. And you can, any corporation can alienate a customer for life. And TikTok, I've had enough. Here's the Trump Tower. Here's the Wrigley Building. But the last thing I posted was Sarah, our late great moderator, Sarah Harwood there. She was from Oklahoma, and she was my first moderator, ran the mod team. Anita knows her, Chris knows her, or knew her. And she's up there with Diana and John James, watching from heaven there. So hopefully, Sarah never liked YouTube, and it's probably because I live stream in landscape. It would make her nauseous, like the widescreen. So now that I stream in portrait, it might have been better for her. But she loved TikTok, which is great. We miss Sarah there. She used to arrange flowers. She used to be like a florist. We would show the floral shops there. Here's the Trump Tower in Chicago. Here's the Wrigley Building, the Chicago River. We just went up across the Columbus Drive Bridge. There's the Sheraton Hotel. There's the NBC Tower and Wrigley Building there. Here's the Hyatt Regency. This is what the Pritzker family owns, the Hyatts here. This is the Hyatt Regency in Chicago. Big bars in there. There you can see there's the John Hancock. See the X's there? That's for wind shear. It's behind the Optima signature there. We've been on the roof of this one. Brandon got us up there, but there's the John Hancock. We went by it this morning. Yeah, the ground floor is the third floor. I know. That's why I tell people, I'm like, this is not the ground. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's the ground. You know, and it just, you know, when I show people the streets below the streets under Michigan, they think like the streets hold up the building. I'm like, no, all the buildings have their own foundation. The streets are just in between the buildings, and they filled in the void there. You know, you can see it over there. See, you can see it. Look, it looks like the bottom of the NBC Tower is floating there. You know, here, let's run across the street here. We got the light here. This is Wacker Drive. We'll end it at the Chicago Architecture Center. There's the Jeannie Gang, St. Regis. There's a hotel there. And there's the Aqua, which he also designed, Jeannie Gang. And here, we'll cross here. We'll show this mural. Look at the Wrigley Building, how nice it looks in the sun there. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be on after 5 o'clock tonight. And thanks for everybody supporting me on YouTube. Appreciate your comments there. I don't expect everybody to agree with me. I know I got some strange views here. There's the Lions, there's the Riverwalk, and there's the Sears Tower with the elevated train, Chicago, Illinois. There's the Bears colors. Yeah, the Bears lost yesterday, but we'll see what happens. And the Chicago Fire lost yesterday, but the Bulls and Blackhawks started their season. Blackhawks at least won a few games. Bulls won their home opener, which was nice. And we'll go by the Chicago Architecture Center here. This is one of the last buildings designed by Mies van der Rohe. It looks like all the other buildings. Look, IBM building, that's Mies van der Rohe. You can tell Mies van der Rohe. It looks like the Kaczynski building, and they're all the same. They're black boxes, black glass boxes, the international style, Mies van der Rohe. And you go to Illinois Institute of Technology. He ran the architecture department there after World War II, and people in Illinois Institute of Technology still worship Mies van der Rohe there. See this big C? This is the Chicago Architecture Center here. This is in the Illinois Center here. We've gone in here before, probably in the wintertime when it's cold and nasty. We'll go in there and see what they got here. I missed the architectural biennial. We caught it 2 years ago. Here's the Chicago Architecture Center. And it's because I was at my dad's place. I was coming back from my dad's place. September, it was the end of September there. We missed it, the architectural biennial. But hey, thanks everybody here. We'll show you the nice view up Michigan Avenue. We had sirens coming here. Enjoy the sunshine here. Thanks for tuning in. Make the best rest of Monday here. We'll be on after 5 o'clock. We'll start looking for Halloween decorations. And if you missed it on Friday night, the reruns are there. You can either go to the live tab or the videos tab, and you'll see it there. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day. Number 11 here. There's the London House there. Fannie Mae here. Get your Fannie Mae chocolates here. Premium chocolates here since 1920 here. The Chicago line. So you got the artist here. Get your Fannie Mae assorted chocolates. You get the Pixies. Happy Halloween, everybody. We'll see you after 5 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Let me thank everybody here. D. Michael, Sam, Joe King, Christy, Anita, thanks for being on. I really appreciate it. Angie Love, Adventures, Life Nova, Merck. Yeah, thanks, everybody. Mary Tree, Shauna, whoever else is tuning in. Chris, I appreciate it. All the Michaels, Michael Anderson. Thanks, everybody here. We'll see you later. Pete. Yeah, have a great day. Okay, thanks, everybody. Jason T, Jeff, Subi, Joe King, Elegante. Yeah, nice Crim Trails. I'm going to go snort them. Talk to you later. Okay, bye.